Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I'll call this meeting of the Woodford County Fiscal Court special meeting for the purpose of the Committee of the Whole for our budget discussion. I'll call this meeting to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Squire Taylor.
Here.
Squire Gentry.
Here.
Squire Garner.
Here.
Squire Carl. Squire Downey.
Here.
Squire Blackford.
Present.
Squire Hill.
Here.
Squire Brown.
Here.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I'm going to check on one thing before we get started here. So everybody just hold tight. Hey, Beverly, can you hear us and can you test your sound, please?
I can hear you. Are you all able to hear me?
Loud and clear. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so we'll get started on our 25-26 budget discussion. At our last Committee of the Whole, we started at 2 o'clock and went through a lot of items in relation to the budget, went all the way through the entire budget as presented, and also went through our list of items to include and exclude. And as you all know, the very last item that we decided to look at was looking at including and excluding the recycling's request for a vehicle in the budget. And the preference seemed to be to include that therein. And so I want to recognize Beverly Flagg, our finance officer, to go through the changes in the budget worksheet between last meeting and tonight. So Beverly, whenever you're ready, we can follow along with you.
Okay, so the first line that changed from our last meeting on the 13th was for the fiscal court purchase of property. It's line number 142 if you're looking at the Excel spreadsheets.
Yeah.
Account number 0150257150. It changed from $200,000 to $350,000.
All right, and Bev, I think you can just do the numerical line item numbers, and if people want if they can't figure out which item we're on, we can go to the account number.
Okay, sounds great. So I'll move on to line number 145. Fiscal court safety other equipment. That's a new line item for some safety barriers. And I believe there's a donation related to that.
And Beverly, I have that as 144. Is that correct? Okay, so I'm looking at the 512 version. Sorry, continue on.
Okay. The next line item is number 216. Maintenance, courthouse renewals and repairs. That went from 124,000 to 167,000 based on the items decided that evening to include.
All right.
What line item is that?
Then we have line 218.
Hey, Bev, the
Yes.
216. And Squire Gill, if you want to turn your mic on, Bev can hear you, but she probably can't hear you without.
Thanks, Bev. I just needed to know what line item that was. 216?
Yes.
It's for maintenance, courthouse renewals and repairs.
Okay.
Account number 0150805710.
And much did that increase? Or to what? What was the amount, the current amount for that line item?
167,000.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I'll move on to line item 218, maintenance new vehicle. We included a new vehicle totaling 95,000. The next line item, 221, maintenance other equipment. The decision was made to include $50,000 for a man lift, which I believe is to be shared by maintenance and the road department. The next line item is number 225, county clerk satellite office renewals and repairs. That changed from 28,000 to 63,000. The next line item is 229, off-site repairs and maintenance. It changed from 419,000 to 1,880,000. The next line item, 235, for annex repairs, changed from 1,415,000 to 1,900,000. The next line item, 360, that's recycling solid waste new vehicle, went from 0 to 49,900 to include a new vehicle. The next line item, 369, is for carcass removal. It changed from 75,000 to 15,000 because they had a higher number of animals that died in the winter and needed some additional funding.
And Bev, let me just say that we were ensuring that that was the accurate request. We weren't questioning it. We just didn't know if it was accurate or not. And obviously, through the treasurer and you and our discussions with conservation, it is an increase of twofold the amount of requests because they are seeing more dead animals.
Yes. Thank you.
Bev, we have a question from Squire Brown. Squire Brown, sir?
How much is that again, please?
It changed from 7,500
Okay,
to 15,000.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome. The next line item is line 396, Parks Recreation Special Capital Projects. That changed from $1,574,013.68 down to $1,414,213.96 because we had some additional expenses that we've paid between the 13th and today. The next line item is General Reserve for Transfer number 472. That changed from $9,668,919.02 up to $10,375,705.93.
Bev, you mind to read that one more time?
Sure. It changed to $10,375,705.93.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Next, we'll go to road materials, which is line number, sorry, I didn't have it notated, 505. That changed from $564,325.07 to $604,325.07. The next line item is number 513 for road maintenance equipment. It changed from $575,000 to $287,500. Then we're going to go down to the flood fund. Let me get that line item here. It's 698. And that's the flood fund reserve for transfer. It changed from $459,126.72 to $304,132.81. And that was reduced due to additional expenses between the 13th and today. Then we'll go
Can
to
you-
line
Beth, can-
item
I'm sorry, Beth.
701. Oh,
I'm sorry to interrupt, but can you repeat that number again?
Sure. So the flood reserve for transfer changed to $304,132.81.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Then we'll move down to the opioid program support, line number 701. That changed from $332,793.33 to $498,053.68. Then that takes us to the last one, which is line number 717. That's the Sheriff Asset Forfeiture Reserve for Transfer. That changed from $600,000 to $630,000. And that is the last line item that changed.
Thank you, Bev. We'll give everybody a moment
welcome.
to digest that.
Sure.
So, you have in your email the most up-to-date reflected numbers that Bev explained. I think we printed you the one right before this, but it's pretty straightforward. Hold on one second. All right. So, you all have got the budget worksheet in front of you. Given the list of updates, essentially, there's not really a whole lot of changes. These are just updates that are a reflection of either actual numbers that we've been able to confirm and verify. As you all know, through the budget process, actual numbers get revealed the closer we get to the end of the fiscal year. Some of these numbers have been trued up to the actual expenditure that we expect to make. The other items that were mentioned were voted on by the fiscal court at the last meeting to be included or excluded from the budget based on the discussions that we had. The one thing that I would note is that the reserve for transfer went up because our estimated amount of receipts increased, right, Madam Treasurer? Yeah. And so the version that you have in Eagle as our Eagle software that's been presented to you is the version that is up for first reading tonight. Essentially, that version is where it will be for the first reading. It can obviously change between the first and second reading, but it cannot be increased. No other line item can increase. Unless there's some sort of major issue that we need to increase and ask DLG for consideration, I don't anticipate that. It's never happened before. So the budget is as it is before you for the first reading tonight, which will then also need to be approved by the Department of Local Government before we have a second reading. You all also have the salary sheet, which you've had, and other supporting documentation for all of our budget items. And many of our department budgets you've had since they were submitted. And I think we're prepared to continue our discussion on the budget and cover any questions that anybody has. So I'd open up the floor for any questions on the budget. Yes, Squire Varner.
Yes, Judge, on line item 228, I know we talked the last meeting, is that the stadium stuff is still contingent, talking to the school board about sharing the cost of that?
Yes. And that would be 229?
229?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Off-site repairs and maintenance?
Yes.
Yes, all that would be contingent upon discussions with them and commitments.
And you would talk to them, then we bring it back before us to...
Yes, and I've had some preliminary discussions with the board chair of the school board, but as you know, they have a brand-new superintendent coming in, and so we decided that we would wait till the new superintendent comes in and we would resume those discussions, but everything's been productive. I think everybody understands what we're trying to do,
Right.
and that it needs to be a shared project.
Right. Thank you, Jesse.
And so what we have budgeted is a revenue line of 50% of that cost. Now, whether or not that's the final agreement, slightly more or slightly less, may depend on that discussion, but that is what the revenue line item reflects.
Could we possibly, if it didn't and it fit their budget, do this over a year or two?
Yes, I think so. I think, you know, our goal is to have that in there if there's a good deal to be made and we can move forward on it. Just so we know what it looks like in the full picture of our finances. But if it needs to be phased or carried out over a longer period of time, more budget cycles, we can do that.
All right. Thank you.
And I'll keep everyone updated on any discussions along those lines. Other questions or comments regarding the budget? Squire Gill, you're recognized.
Let's see, this is, it's in line number 228 as well. Regarding the theater expenses, $300,000 for lights, seats, and floors. Was there a discussion about this dollar surcharge that we had been foregoing for the theater?
Yes.
Is that, are we going to get that dollar surcharge now that we're putting 300,000 in?
So, let me back up from that question just to explain exactly what happened in that line item. So, Director Wade was with us, but our clerk, Madam Coyle, so we had the bid openings for the projects. Can you just explain what happened? Director Wade, if you wouldn't mind to approach. We're just explaining what happened with the bid openings with the theater project. And you don't mind to turn on your mic, please?
The bid opening happened. We met with the members at the theater, and we went over what they wanted. And, I feel we can do this in-house or with a in-house contractor, which will be quite a bit cheaper. The bid also had like $20,000 in lodging and food, and I just feel we need to reject that bid, or we've asked to reject that bid for that. But I think our lighting issues we can do in-house. However, I'd like to keep some of that cushion in there until we get, firmed up on that.
Okay.
But it does entail a lot. It has a lot of safety features that we're looking at from the original design to what needs to be upgraded to help with if we do have any type of emergency at that facility, that we can get people out, lighting enhancements. So.
Okay.
So I bring that up to say that the total amount the theater spent on previous renovations up to this point for this project is $140,000. Is that correct, Rick?
I believe we're very close to that.
So I believe the theater would say that that is their contribution of the $1 per ticket that they're using they kept in reserve for capital funds, that they've expended it on the improvements to the theater that are in the amount of about $140,000. And so the amount that we have put in for the total project, which the fiscal court would be solely responsible, is $200,000, is what is in this budget. That does not mean that we have to expend that amount or do that type of a scale of a project, but we estimate that that's conservatively the ballpark that it would take to do what they want to be done.
Okay, thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, $200,000 was what we, so it was 3. They did their $140,000 worth of projects, and Rick, as you've kind of explained, the projects that they want us to do are the flooring, the lighting, and the seats, right?
Yes, sir. And also ADA compliant seating area for wheelchairs. Currently, they're sitting in the aisle. We want to be able to have some railing and a backstop that will come up to keep any wheelchair from rolling backwards, but that would make it ADA compliant totally.
And so I just handed out to you all the updated version of the include and exclude list. And that takes into account everything that we've included and excluded that is reflected in this budget. And you can see about 3/4 of the way down the page, the offsite repairs and maintenance, theater lighting, 100,000, seating repair replacement 30, flooring 70 and those are all estimates. But we do think that it'll be a significantly less expensive project due to we're trying to do as much as we can in-house.
Yes, sir.
So that being the case, I do know, Rick, don't you think, and isn't the plan to start doing some of these improvements in July when they're off?
Yes, sir. They have a dead period or a down period. We would go in and start on the flooring, check it. Still trying to find out some more information on that. We're going to have it checked for termites tomorrow. Mr. Callaway we're spraying the stadium, the field house, and I'm going to have him stop up just to check that. I'm looking also at the flooring, possibly foam fill the floor where we don't have to tear it out. But if we do, it's going to be pretty expensive. But there is some leveling issues that they have. There's a small rubber foot underneath the sleepers, and I think they've just crushed down over 20 years of use. So that's where we stand on that.
All right.
And the seating, there's need for repair, especially I'm not sure why the front row down at the very bottom has been, I guess, high use or kids sitting down close. But there's a lot of repair that needs to be done on those. And they're not off the shelf. They're a special order you got to get. We do have some parts in that we've ordered several months ago that we're going to start repair on those. But if we have to do any replacement, I wanted to be able to have them ready to go.
Thank you, Director Wade. So again, returning to the items to include and exclude, which is the 12th version of this form. But that's what our finance officer went over at the beginning of the meeting, each individual line item. For example, I do believe that we included the Verity printers, but my understanding is we're going to get those maybe even today. So, for example, that item, and Beverly, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that item of $55,530 is in the budget, but it will be expensed in the current fiscal year and not the next fiscal year.
Excuse me, Judge.
Yeah, go ahead.
So it's been excluded in the budget. However, I forgot to remove the include wordage from that spreadsheet. So that should say exclude.
Okay,
My
sorry.
apologies for that oversight. But it has been excluded from the budget for next year.
Okay, and the reason that the difference is that literally, we got notice today we were going to get those printers. So we decided to reflect it. So it is not in the budget. Thank you, Bev.
Thank you.
All right. Let me open up the floor for other questions regarding the budget. Well, since we have Director Wade with us right here, and we just got off the topic of the lights for the theater modernization project, as recommended by Director Wade in the review of all parties, the recommendation would be to reject the bid received for the light project as part of the theater modernization project due to the failure to meet our procurement policies and requirements, and to authorize the maintenance supervisor to seek quotes from other contractors and pursue other avenues to complete the project. Is there a motion to that effect? Motion by Squire Gentry, second by Squire Downey. I'd open up the floor for any questions or comments thereon. Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion to reject the bid on the light project for the theater, please vote and signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. And that motion carries unanimously. And as you all continue to look through the budget for items, I'd like to bring up the community stadium lease. As part of our discussion, Squire Varner, of the transition between superintendents, we also believe that it's probably the best case scenario for us to continue and renew the community stadium lease agreement between the fiscal court and the Board of Education under the same terms for an additional year, so that that lease is done at the end of June. So something needs to happen. My recommendation is that we keep things the same and begin the discussions with the school board and the new superintendent. So yes, Mr. County Attorney.
Judged by that, then, the only change would be, correct me if I'm wrong, you don't want to have the automatic one-year renewal in there. So it would just be a one-year lease. Our lease currently expires June 30th of this year. The old lease was June 30, 24. It automatically renewed until this June. So in the one we're proposing, it would just be a one-year lease and take out the language about the automatic renewal.
Yes, Mr.
Okay.
County Attorney, that is correct. And we would work on a new lease, and we would include some of the discussions that we've had along the lines of the budget items that we've been discussing. So is there a motion to recommend the renewal of the community stadium lease agreement between the county and the Board of Education under the same or similar terms, exclusive of what the county attorney mentioned, contingent upon final review of the county attorney and judge executive?
So,
Motion by Squire Varner, second by Squire Taylor. Are there any questions or comments along those lines? Seeing none, all those in favor, please vote and signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. And that motion also carries unanimously. All right. Other questions or comments in the budget before we move on to other items?
Judge.
Yes, sir, Mr. Varner, Squire Varner.
Thank you. Rick, I know we talked before about doing an inventory list on the tool stuff, and I know we've had a lot of stuff happen since you and I talked about it. I know that, but I was just gonna ask you if at some point, when you get started on that, I'd be more than happy to help on it, but
Okay.
I'd like to see us get an inventory sheet on what we've got.
Well, the new maintenance program
Yes.
is very robust, and that has a lot of options that we can put that in. When you bring it into service, we can take it out of service when, you know, you damage batteries or,
Right.
you know, we've done a lot of work, a lot of batteries are being replaced.
Right, right, I know how that goes.
Keep walking with it, but,
Yes,
we'll work on it.
all right. I know it's been a busy time.
Yes.
Thank you for your consideration on it.
No problem.
Thanks, Rick.
Thank you, Squire Partner. Opening up the floor for additional discussion regarding the fiscal year 25-26 budget. Other questions or comments regarding the budget? Squire Gill? Did you
I don't
your
have any, I'm
mic on?
sorry.
Oh, no, you're good. You're good. Let's see. I will have Director Chandler, if you would, please. We want to talk about the emergency management donation and the request around the portable safety barriers.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
One of the things that emergency management does is identify solutions and, well, gaps, and then identify solutions. And one has presented itself in the form of a donation from a local, a very generous business. And top of mind, again, in the headlines, there was an event across the Atlantic Ocean where a car plowed through a crowd of people assembled for a festive time, and several of them are in the hospital and may not survive that event. So that's something that we collaborate with the police and sheriff on pretty regularly. We're not immune from something like that happening here. And it may not even be a deliberate act. It could be somebody having a medical episode that's just disoriented and turns onto a street that's normally for vehicles, and that particular day and time it's for pedestrians. So site safety and barricades have been something that we've been exploring for a while. Chief Young had identified two real solutions, one of which is costlier per unit, but it's portable in the sense that one able-bodied person can move them around versus other barricades that require material handling equipment, hydraulics and winches and other things, whether it be a water-filled barricade, concrete, or something made of metal. So these tools, for what they are very expensive, but they're also very necessary. Given the day and age, there's ample justification for their use here and other places. So one of the things that we've been doing was trying to find purchasing vehicles, and an opportunity has presented itself to get a starter kit of sorts that can help here in the downtown area with the district or other locations as these items are portable. So The local business, the couple who have submitted a donation, they really don't want to draw any attention to themselves. So I don't want to air their name publicly, but I would privately confide that in you if you desired to know that information. But the amount they've donated is sufficient to purchase 4 barricades and the connecting cables that would be county property, and we could use them at the district or other locations as needed. So this is a 2-part request that I'm coming with you. One is to accept the donation, no strings attached, but also to allow me to go to bid because these items are not on a state price contract and the dollar amount would exceed our bid threshold in the procurement ordinance. And our hope would be to get that advertised. We feel like there's not going to be any out of left field bid responses to the ad, and allow that to be purchased with the spirit of the donation that it was made for public safety uses. And I know I collaborated with the treasurer about this, that the donation was made. They understood that there could not be any strings attached to it, but it was their desire that it be spent on a public safety application.
Thank you, Director Chandler. So the first action necessary from the court would be to move to accept the donation in the amount of $37,945 under no special conditions or restrictions as recommended by the Emergency Management Director. Motion by Squire Taylor, second by Squire Downey. Sorry. Other questions or comments thereon? Varner, sir.
Drew, can you explain to me more about how those barriers look and what we're going to have there in that purchase?
Well, pending the bid outcome, there's really only one major player in this space that makes something that is not a semi-permanent and that you could physically take it to another town and use it versus something that there's a puck or a mounting bracket in a permanent location. But it's a steel formed structure about 24 inches in width, and it's designed to absorb the impact of a vehicle hitting it by using the vehicle's own inertia to effectively dig into the ground like a scoop would on a bobcat bucket. So the harder it gets hit, the harder it digs in. And then by themselves, a vehicle would obviously lose a lot of its force. But these barricades are tethered together with steel cables, so they have a multiplying effect to distributing that force into the ground. You obviously, part of the design, we spoke with the company, and there's a 20-foot incursion zone, so if a vehicle did hit it, it doesn't dig in. It takes a few feet for it to dig in, so you don't want anybody immediately on the other side of it. But it can be moved around with a 2-wheel dolly type appliance when I'll call it the landing gear is deployed. These are commonplace. The city of Richmond has quite a few of these. They're on a GSA contract, but they're not on a Kentucky contract. So they're starting to pop up more and more places. They're able to be rented for larger events, but the shipping cost, because they're made out of heavy gauge steel, is not really conducive to our multiple events that we have throughout the year. We need these. We need some in our inventory longer term that belong to us.
Thanks, Drew.
Thank you, Squire Varner. Other questions for Director Chandler? There's a motion on the table. All those in favor, please vote and signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. That motion carries unanimously. We then need to authorize emergency management to advertise and begin the bid process for the portable safety barriers as recommended. Motion by Squire Gentry, second by Squire Blackford. All those in favor, please vote and signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. And that motion carries unanimously. All right, Director Chandler, since I have you there, I'll move on to our property acquisition discussion. The goal for this discussion was to not go into executive session because the property acquisition process is somewhat exploratory at this point. We want to get appraisals to understand what some of the properties that we are looking at, what their fair market value is pursuant to the statute in order to move forward with a property acquisition if the fiscal court so chooses. But Director Chandler has identified a few properties that would be close to adjoining or adjacent to the to other county properties that would make sense for us to potentially look at purchasing those properties. And so the request, as you all know, is to authorize appraisals for 2 of the specified properties, correct, Director Chandler?
Judge, I initially identified 3 for the members of the court. It's my understanding that one of them could not be acquired in a timely manner. There is another property that may be of interest with a different address that was not in the original email. And I'm not sure how you'd like to bring that up for further discussion, Judge.
That might be a problem since this is this will be new to the magistrates, so they wouldn't be in a position to really have enough information to make a decision unless we do have an executive session, go into it. I mean, you could deal with the 2 that they're aware of, and so as not to delay that. I think that would be a good approach.
So the request would be for us to authorize emergency management director to initiate appraisals on the subject properties that have been identified to establish fair market value. Is there a motion along those lines? Motion by Squire Brown.
Second.
Second by Squire Taylor. Now I'd like to open up the floor for any discussion. And again, the action requested here is simply to get the properties appraised and not anything further along those lines.
Judge, I did get a qualified quote from a local appraisal service of $375 per property, and was informed that the turnaround on that would be a week to 10 days.
Thank you, Director Chandler. If there are no other questions on that request, all those in favor of the motion on the table, please vote and signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. And that motion carries.
Question.
Yeah,
Are these
Squire.
addresses, are these fire gates?
Those are addresses.
Okay.
And if anybody has any specific questions to Director Chandler along those lines, I would encourage you to take some time with him. He's done his research on this. The one thing that I would also say, just to make sure if we have folks that are watching or asking what we're doing, number one, it's a property acquisition, so we cannot identify any properties in open court for a variety of reasons. We also don't want to spend the time to go into executive session to discuss this because simply requesting an appraisal is a fairly routine item of business. But this does not have any connection to the FEMA mitigation buyouts. The federal government has not approved any county in the April floods to receive public assistance, which would allow us to be reimbursed for our expenses. And it also opens up programs like the mitigation buyout. So this doesn't have anything to do with that, except for some of these properties have been flooded. But they are of a different type of value to the county, and so we're looking at moving forward with seeing what it would take to acquire those properties through this process.
You explained it very well, Judge.
Thank you, Director Chandler. Other questions or comments regarding that? Seeing none, we'll move on. I think that's all we have for you, Director Chandler.
Thank you, Judge.
You're welcome.
I will avail myself to the magistrates if they have any questions between or after the regular meeting.
Thank you, thank you. So let me return back to the county budget. Open up the floor for any questions or comments for any items in the budget. Yes, Squire Gill, you're
I have one.
recognized.
Thank you. Is question for Beverly Flagg. She had mentioned, I think at line item 470, something with the general reserve for transfer, it was modified to $10,375,705.93. I don't see that on this new spreadsheet. Could she just clarify that? It went kind of fast, and I kind of lost me there.
So the treasurer actually does that calculation for the reserve for transfer.
Okay.
So, and I probably wasn't clear, and I apologize on this. So the worksheet that you are looking at is a revised version, but it is not the most up-to-date which you have in your email. So in your email, that line item, and Beverly or Melody, please correct me if I'm wrong, that the current amount that will be submitted to DLG for line item 472, the general reserve for transfer, is $10,375,705.93. And
Correct.
so, that is correct, Beverly?
Yes.
And so you do have that, it just, probably not in that paper form that you have there, it'd be in your, email. And it was,
472, thank you.
it was revised upwards, Madam Treasurer, because of some, increased estimations of our receipts, our
Based
revenues.
on what we've received up to this point, it was recalculated based on getting additional monies in, yes.
Yes, so that's a very, very positive development in the budget, is that our current year receipts have exceeded our current budget estimates, which will increase our carryover into the next fiscal year, which will ultimately increase our reserve for transfer for next fiscal year. But I appreciate you pointing out that clarification, because I too am looking at the 9 a.m. printout. Other questions or comments on the budget? Then while you continue to review what we have in front of us, I would recognize Squire Taylor, if you're ready to explain what's going on with the Crittenden cabin.
Sure.
And you might want to just start out with whose it is and
Yeah.
how we got here.
Well,
It's a lot, I know.
I was going to say I don't want to take everybody's time on this, but you all, the court may have received an email or should have received an email from me, giving a little bit of background on this. But when I first took office 7 years ago, I had folks come out to me, and particularly when I met with some folks with Frontier Nursing University, expressing interest in finding a new home for the Crittenden cabin, which was the birthplace and of John Crittenden, notable Woodford County, and for lots of reasons and throughout history, and his sons as well. And we've spent a lot of time trying to find a home for the cabin in that area. We really were hoping to keep the cabin in the Pisgah area where it was the original land grant of that the Crittenden family received. Unfortunately, after nearly countless amount of leads and opportunities over the years, it just hasn't landed as I guess, working locations for it to go. in the past, and with Frontier Nursing looking to grow their, potentially grow their campus, they really have a time sensitivity of having a location, and so I had some conversation with the judge, and we were looking at some grant money for the relocation and restoration of the cabin with the Historical Society, which again is this is where it gets complicated. So it's on the campus of Frontier Nursing. If you haven't seen it, it's next to where the golf course used to be out there. It is owned by the Woodford County Historical Society. It used to be owned by the Woodford County Heritage Committee. In the 70s, it was passed to the Historical Society with the contingency that any changes or work done on it would be approved by the Heritage Committee. But it's this weird nuance where it's owned by the Historical Society, it's on the property of the Frontier Nursing University. Obviously, at that time, there wasn't a concern on the location as long as the Methodist Home had that campus when the property was sold to Frontier Nursing, and they came in and they were looking at things. They have some plans for that area, and so we've kind of got to a crunch time on it when there was the application for $120,000 for a grant to move the cabin as well as work towards restoring the roof. We wanted to make sure that it was somewhere that we would have longevity, that it would be a safe spot for such a historically significant cabin, and that it would also, most importantly, be accessible to the public and be able to be utilized, because part of the reason it's gotten a condition it is in is because it's off the beaten path a little bit and doesn't have access for the public to get to. You've got to get permission from Frontier Nursing to even go on the campus there, and there's not close parking, and so it's not an ideal circumstance in any way, but I'm excited about those funds to make this project happen, and the Parks Board has approved the location that's on the map for you all to see, as well as its relocation there as well. I'm happy to answer any questions on it, though.
Yes, Mr. County Attorney, sir.
Squire, when we talked Friday, and then I got the email subsequent to that, the relationship between the Heritage Committee and the Historical Society. So when you say it previously had been owned by the Heritage Committee, and then just talking about the cabin itself, because normally you have the structure affixed to property and then the property is deeded. So this was just a transfer of the cabin itself? In what, do you know in what fashion did it change hands from the Heritage Committee to the Historical Society?
I have seen a document outlining the transfer, but I don't know what to call it because, as you said, it's not a deed. But it is a contractual relationship.
Okay.
I will find that document and send it to you.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
It
Okay.
is. There's nothing normal about all of this circumstance, and unfortunately we can't go back 50 plus years to try to make it a little bit more clean, but it is what it is at this point. But obviously we need more information.
So we are literally just talking about the cabin itself, where to place it, and there's nothing that we'll have to deal with from the past about land or property or anything, real property or anything like that.
Yeah, in fact, the current property owners of the land would be very happy with that relocation.
Thank you.
Squire Varner, sir.
Yes, thank you. Squire Taylor, in the grant, is that, you think sufficient enough to move it, or?
Great question. And I'd be happy to share with you all the grant as well, the application. From my understanding, and from my work on the grant, there are several pieces to the project success, some of which would be, there have been funds dedicated from Frontier Nursing to assist in the relocation, but another part of the project is evidently I wouldn't say fairly common, but a often used model for funding these kind of projects, which is you contract with a contractor who does this kind of work, and they actually sell tickets for people to come in and learn how to disassemble and preserve cabins like this. And then, in fact, you do that disassembling and moving, and then you actually sell additional tickets for the rebuilding of historic cabins like this. And we actually got this idea from the State Historical Properties Office, the SHPO office, and it was something that they have actually done in the past with partners. So it was news to me, but that is a part of that funding mechanism.
Thanks, Squire. Appreciate it.
Judge, if I may, there's another question. Squire, so it would be disassembled, transported in whatever fashion, and then have to be reassembled. As far as if and when the court approves this, if the court approves it and they approve the location, what kind of pad, and who's paying for that?
Yeah.
My whole approach to this, as we talked about, is that this not cost the county anything. So how would that occur?
Yeah, you know what? I think that has to be a part of the conversation with the contractor that's awarded in that, or contracted on this process. But I do think that it would be an opportunity for us to have some in-kind gift of site preparation or site readiness on the county property that would probably help mitigate some not only cost to them as an in-kind, but it would also make sure that we have the conditions we want for the county park as well in that process. But I don't know exactly what that looks like. Obviously, we need to have the road department involved in that conversation, and it would obviously be a part of a lease or any other contract on that, but that's a good question.
And as we talked about, there would be other issues for the court, for example, depending upon where it's situated in relation to the road itself. Sidewalk have to be built, a pathway, walkway or something. Who's paying for that? Is that going to be expected to be contributed by the court? Again, so this will all have to be addressed in the court's decision-making process.
Yes, other questions on the Crittenden cabin relocation for Squire Taylor? So Squire Taylor, your request would be that we approve the site and relocation to the county park. Would that be the specific site identified by the Parks Board? Is that, or do we want to just give a general approval and allow the county attorney to work with the Historical Society on a draft lease and make sure that that's where we want to go?
I mean, I think that the court would should know where that intention is, but I don't know that we have to approve that specific site at this moment. I just wanted everybody to know where they're looking at. I communicated with Director Pichter and as well as Director Johns on ideas of where it would be appropriate to be relocated, where it wouldn't be in conflict with any other features of the park, as well as being close enough to other areas of traffic where it would not be subject to vandalism, but also be a little bit secluded where it doesn't completely diminish the frontier feeling of the cabin.
Yeah.
Well, so I think it's a pretty good compromise location, but I don't know that that's anybody's interest that would, if that's a sticking point for anybody, that it would be necessary to be a part of the approval.
Good deal. Squire Brown, sir.
Have you asked Midway about their park, for putting it over there? Or do you have a reason why you want it in?
No, I haven't asked their Midway. I honestly hadn't occurred to me, Squire Brown. particularly because we were looking at finding somewhere as close as possible to the current location is why, but obviously it's not as close as we would have liked, but that was the hope, was to try to find somewhere as close as possible that, and something that would be county with the Historical Society minded.
Okay, would Midway Park be closer, and bring it clear to?
I'd have to do the math, but I don't know that it would, but I don't know that it wouldn't either.
Okay.
I would say, in being involved in these discussions, I would say going from 60 to the county park would be much more logistically feasible than either taking Midway Road or Payne's. You'd be on some oversized lows on some small roads, I'd imagine.
And I will say in the background for everybody, this has been, there are two things that have made this such a long process in identifying. One, obviously where to go, which has been much more of a sticking point than I ever thought it would be. But two, is how it's moved, right? Because it's got two masonry chimneys, it's got all these some original, all the structure itself. All those beams, and so there's been a discussion about moving it intact without the chimneys at different points. There's also been discussion of dismantling. Right now, the contractor that has been engaged in preliminary conversations is to fully dismantle it with the chinking and daubing and everything else and bring it back in. But that has been a part of that concern, is where has the least amount of sharp turns, what has the low, doesn't have the most risk of hitting overhead obstacles and things like that as well.
And I would also say, as a general matter, I think John J. Crittenden and the Crittenden family would have more of a connection to the county than to Midway. Not that they couldn't go to Midway for another reason, but he was in the settlement and his family was in the settlement and founding of the county, and he was. You want to talk about the historical significance of Mr. Crittenden?
Yeah, well, they certainly, they predated the city of Midway for sure as well. They have, I want to share with everybody on the application. I'll give you a brief without everybody having to worry about all of the narrative.
Thank you, Charles. You're welcome.
From my OneDrive. So, again, this, I want to make sure I don't forget anything. This did come from, it was the 250th Year of American History grant program through the state. But let's see. John J. Crittenden was, following the Revolutionary War, his family got the land grant. He was governor of Kentucky, 4-time U.S. Senator, U.S. Attorney General under 2 presidents. His sons, one was a Union general, one was a Confederate officer. There's just a really rich history between all of his, him and his family as well. It also, interestingly, was the birthplace of, or the home of, oh gosh, I'm going to mess this up, of an award-winning writer, and I forget who it is off the top of my head. I apologize putting myself on the spot. I shouldn't even brought it up, but it has a long history on that residence. I didn't realize that people were still living there during the Methodist home at points at different times, the people that worked at the Methodist home for over the years. And it has been moved once from the back of that property to the front of the property in the 70s. So that actually makes it less of a problem to move at this point.
Yes, Mr. County Attorney.
Coming up with the question, Squire, I'm sorry.
No, come
A couple of things I was thinking about too, like when we talk about where it's going to be located, and obviously assembled on whatever location is agreed upon if the court chooses to agree that this can be done. But for its downtime, so that it's, people are aware that it is not open, would it be fenced? If so, who's going to be responsible for that? Who would maintain the grounds? I think we'd have to address that. If there's got to be more than just it sitting there, we're going to have a pathway leading to it. Is the court going to be expected to maintain that? Are they going to maintain that? Again, if it is to be fenced, in effect to communicate to park visitors that it is not open versus it is open, signage, things like that. I think there's going to have to be a listing of what all might be asked of the court to be partners in this.
Absolutely.
Okay.
No, I agree, and I think that could either be hashed out in a lease agreement or in other additional relations on it. I just think that if we don't have again, including the fact that if we don't ask you to help draft a lease with them, then we can't approve or not disapprove a lease. So I think that's a big part of this next step on what that agreement looks like.
And any lease would have to address, look, they have good people like you looking into this and others who've been there and continue to, we don't know what the situation may be 20 years from now. Are there going to be people taking care of it? If it falls into disrepair, who's going to be responsible for that? Does the court take it over? Is it the court then allowed to do whatever needs to be done with it? So I think we'll have to be looking not just at the immediate future, but the long-term future if the court does decide to allow for a long-term lease as to what the responsibilities are to keep it up and in good state of repair. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. County Attorney.
Thank you.
So
I'll just say I think that's why it's important to have that conversation with the Historical Society, because I'm not a member of their board. I've just been a super volunteer, I guess, in trying to help facilitate this process. But I think those are all obviously important questions.
Absolutely. And so I think the proper action would be to move to approve the relocation of the Crittenden cabin to the county park contingent upon a lease with the Historical Society that meets the requirements of the fiscal court, and to direct the county attorney to work with the Historical Society on same.
I'll make that motion.
There's a motion. There's a motion and a second. I'd open the floor for any additional questions, comments, or discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor, please vote, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. And the motion carries. Thank you, Squire Taylor, for your diligent work on that. Okay, I'm returning everyone back to the fiscal year 25-26 budget. Requesting questions, comments on the budget. Is there anything additional, any other questions, anything else anybody has regarding the budget? For other related matters, one of the things, Madam Clerk, the Bobcat request.
Yes, that's on the copier. I can bring those in. Drive it up here too if you'd like.
Yeah, I'm going to share this with you all for your review, not necessarily a decision, but something I want the fiscal court to look at. We do have Director Wade and Assistant Director Rick Hartley with us that can discuss this request. And if Jordan, if you wanted to go ahead and get that to share around while we're waiting. So in the flood cleanup in particular, but also in other projects for county government, one of the things that we found, and I think Rick can, and Bo Wilson can explain this in even more detail than I can, but essentially a track bobcat that has tracks instead of rubber tires is a much more useful item, particularly when you're dealing with debris. The debris often has sharp pieces of metal, screws, nails, that sort of thing. And we've had to replace a lot of our bobcat tires during that process. Our bobcats are also getting older. And between maintenance and the road department, they wanted the fiscal court to look at the state price contract for a bobcat. Assistant Director Hartley, would you like to come up and kind of talk about how this need originated?
Yes, well, like you said, from the flood was the main thing. I mean, we took the wheel machine down there to clean up debris, and within a matter of an hour had 4 flat tires on it, because it's just not the proper machine for that. The 2 machines we have at County Road are both wheel machines. One of them is at end of life, pretty much. The other one is a newer machine, and again, it's also not a cab machine. The machine we're looking at is a cab track machine, which makes it easier in also cleaning up trees during storms, after storms on County Road, because A, you have a cab and you're not getting soaking wet sitting in a bobcat like I have several times, and you don't tear up people's yards as bad on the side of the road, or the side of the road for that matter, because a bobcat with tires, as some of us may know, leaves big ruts whenever you turn it, where a track machine does not. So that's kind of the high points about it, and it is a larger machine than we've ever had, I guess, at County Road that I'm aware of, as far as horsepower and the ability to have the high flow hydraulics to run an auger or a grapple bucket or all that adequately.
And so this discussion has been going on for several weeks since the flood. You all will note that we are currently renting these style of bobcats in order to pick up the debris. Memorial Day weekend was a good weekend for people to get out and do some work on their flood impacted properties, and so we had a lot of this week's going to be another week where we're returning back to a lot of flood debris pickup.
Yes.
And so, again, this is something that it was not budgeted in the road department budget. There is some additional funds within that budget that have not been expended in this fiscal year. But I think the overall request would be for us to discontinue the rental of some of these items and then purchase this for permanent use under the road department and maintenance. It would be a road department vehicle or equipment with the ability for the maintenance department to use it as needed.
Yes, that's true.
So that is, I'm not going to have an action item on that in the committee, but that's something I wanted you all to review in committee to discuss for at some point, if it's ready for a vote. I want everybody to have the opportunity to know what we're looking at. And so this is also the request of Road Supervisor Bo Wilson as well.
That is correct. We've both been working together on this purchase.
And it is a big ticket item, as you all know. But I do think that if we purchased it, it would get used in particularly our flood debris removal efforts and save us money with the rental amounts.
Yeah. I don't have the figures in front of me, but it's roughly about $6,000 a month for
To
each
rent.
machine. And we have 3 machines rented right now.
6,000 per machine?
And that's on a state contract, I believe.
Yeah.
The price for the new one.
Yeah, it is. It's on state contract.
Rick, will you get rid of your oldest one? With this purchase, will you get rid of the one that's the oldest?
That is the plan, yes, to put it up for auction.
So that would come back on this.
Yeah.
So the other thing that we could do, so we need to confirm the state price contract, but if it was not, if it's not on the state price contract, then we'll need to bid and purchase something similar to this. In the event it is not on the state price contract, so this doesn't mean we're gonna buy it. In the event it's not on the state price contract, could we have the authorization to bid if necessary? Is there a motion to approve that? Motion by Squire Brown, second by Squire Blackford. So again, this would just be if this is not on the state price contract and we wanted to move forward with it, that we'd have the authorization. That motion's on the table. Are there any questions on that? Seeing none, all those in favor, please vote and signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. That motion carries. Squire Varner.
Rick, have you exclusively looked at Bobcat, or have you checked Kubota?
I have checked Kubota. I have checked with Central Equipment, and I do currently have a quote from them. But this is the quote that Bo got from Bobcat in Lexington. And it was to our understanding that it was state price contract, but obviously I'll have to go back and check on this. I do know that Central Equipment, when I talked to him, he said that he was state contracted as
No,
well.
they do a lot of University of Kentucky stuff, so.
Yeah,
Figured it
so
was-
I know he is, but it's a Kubota machine, and we were kind of wanting to stay with Bobcat since we've already had so many Bobcats in the two in the past, and we're familiar with them and that kind of thing.
I understand that.
No, I would definitely
I know they're a good machine
entertain,
too, but I didn't know if you checked.
yeah, I would definitely entertain a Kubota, because I've used both machines, and they're both nice machines.
Right, thank you, Rick.
Yeah, we just need to confirm it, if possible, but I wanted to get that out in front of everybody, so that you understand what that request is. Other questions or comments? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Hartley, sir, appreciate it. All right. In looking at other matters on the main agenda, we have the Young and New Farmers Grant Program that we will approve those lists of applicants who qualify for the second round disbursements. That is before you. We have the Sheriff's Office 2024 Tax Settlement and Franchise Settlement for your approval. The resolution for non-public school children transportation for the next school year. We also have to change the payroll date for June 19th, which is a holiday. We need to move that payroll date back to June 18th so that folks can get paid prior to the holiday. So that being what we can look forward to in the fiscal court meeting, let me return to the budget. So the motion would be to recommend to the full fiscal court in our regular meeting to have the proposed first reading of ordinance 2025-06, the fiscal year budget for Woodford County Fiscal Court 2025-26. Is there a motion to recommend same? Motion by Squire Brown.
Second.
Second by Squire Taylor. Now I'd open up the floor for any additional discussion on the budget to be recommended for a vote at our fiscal court meeting. Seeing none, all those in favor of recommending approval of the first reading of same, please vote and signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. That motion carries unanimously. So we are in a rare moment of some free time between now and 5:30. Is there any other additional items or information for either the full fiscal court meeting or relating to the budget that any member has any discussion or questions on? Seeing none, that being the sum of business to come before the committee of the whole, we shall reconvene at 5:30 in regular business. But for now, we are adjourned. Thank you all.
with all these people.